Let me begin with a reality check that might disturb you. If you're parking the majority of your wealth in a traditional bank account, waiting for the perfect moment to invest, you're not being cautious, you're selecting a definite erosion of value. And I can demonstrate this with basic mathematics that any teenager could grasp. Yet, surprisingly, highly educated individuals overlook this repeatedly. Here's the calculation everyone avoids. When inflation operates at 3% per year and your basic savings yields 0.5%, you're surrendering 2.5% of your buying capacity every 12 months. This isn't speculation, it's mathematical certainty. Across 10 years, you'll sacrifice roughly 25% of what that capital can genuinely purchase. Not the figures displayed in your statement, but its actual utility in daily life. And that assumes inflation remains at the official conservative estimate. I understand your reaction, but you're thinking, physical currency seems secure. I observe the balance. It never decreases. That's precisely the trap. You're monitoring the incorrect metric. You're tracking nominal currency when you ought to measure actual buying strength. It's equivalent to celebrating that your vehicle's gauge functions while disregarding your empty fuel tank. The behavioral pattern here is entirely predictable. We experience what I term loss aversion amplification. We despise relinquishing what we possess far more than we appreciate acquiring something fresh. Therefore, we grip our currency, petrified of market fluctuations, while inflation systematically steals from us annually. We're so frightened of a 20% temporary decline that could reverse that we embrace a guaranteed 30% erosion across a decade. That's illogical. That's merely costly anxiety. Let me share a framework that protected me from numerous errors. Always reverse your thinking. Rather than questioning, what should I purchase? Question, what methods guarantee my loss? When you invert the currency dilemma, the solution becomes transparent. Retaining currency during inflationary periods means selecting definite erosion over uncertain but likely growth. You're choosing the guaranteed incorrect response because it provides psychological comfort. I discovered this through physics study, not financial theory. In physics, there exists entropy as a principle. Systems naturally progress from structure to chaos unless energy intervenes. Currency buying strength exhibits entropy. It deteriorates organically unless you take action. The subsequent thinking framework you require is exponential growth, but functioning in reverse. Einstein supposedly labeled exponential growth the eighth marvel of existence, but he should have emphasized it operates bidirectionally. When inflation exponentially increases at 3% and your gains are practically nothing, you're witnessing inverse exponential growth demolish your wealth gradually. It's gentle enough that you don't recognize it annually, but catastrophic across multiple decades. Here's what individuals misunderstand. They believe fluctuation equals danger, but genuine danger is the irreversible loss of buying strength. An equity portfolio could decline 15% during a difficult year. Certainly, but currency is guaranteed to decline 3% during a positive year, and that's permanent. You never recover it. My partner and I didn't construct our enterprise by hoarding currency. We acquired enterprises, productive resources that generate revenue, increase prices, and adjust to inflation. When we purchased a confectionery company in 1972 for $25 million, observers believed we paid excessively, but this company could elevate prices. The brand possessed pricing authority. Currency in a banking institution has no such capability. It merely exists there, contracting in real value, while productive resources expand and evolve. Allow me to describe 5 resources that are genuinely more secure than currency, more secure in the singular method that matters. which is maintaining and expanding your actual buying strength. And I'll clarify the thinking framework supporting each so you can reason independently. Initially, productive enterprises, what most individuals label equities, though I prefer considering them as partial ownership in legitimate companies. Here's the critical understanding. A properly managed enterprise with pricing authority organically adjusts for inflation. Consider a beverage company we own substantially. When inflation arrives, this company doesn't simply exist there, losing value like paper currency. It elevates prices. Its revenue grows. The value of your ownership expands with it. Currently, I'm not suggesting purchase arbitrary equities. Most equities are overvalued most periods, and most investors sabotage themselves. But owning portions of exceptional enterprises, companies with powerful brands, minimal capital needs, and pricing authority is fundamentally distinct from retaining currency. The mathematics is direct. Throughout the previous 100 years, equities have yielded approximately 10% annually, while inflation averaged roughly 3%. That's an actual return of 7%. Currency has yielded essentially zero real return and frequently negative. But here's what you must comprehend about your knowledge boundaries. If you don't comprehend enterprises, if you cannot interpret a financial document, if you panic and liquidate during declines, then equities aren't more secure for you. You'll make them hazardous through your own conduct. This is where most investment guidance fails. Individuals provide universal recommendations without considering the largest variable, your own psychology and expertise. Recognize what you know, and critically, recognize what you don't know. The second resource is productive property. Notice I specified productive, not arbitrary property, but property that creates revenue. A rental property that produces cash flow is a productive resource, identical to an enterprise. Property has multiple benefits in an inflationary climate. Rents typically increase with inflation. The loan, if you maintain one, remains constant. You're repaying less valuable currency over time, and the underlying resource often appreciates as construction expenses rise. But again, knowledge boundaries matter. Being a property owner is labor. It requires judgment, upkeep, tenant selection. If you don't know your actions, you'll acquire the incorrect property at the incorrect price and question why property doesn't function for you. My partner and I have possessed substantial property through our enterprise, but always as productive resources, structures that enterprises operate within, land that serves a function, never speculation, always production. There's a critical distinction. Here's an evaluation for any property investment. If the property ceased appreciating tomorrow, would you still desire to own it based on the revenue it creates? If the response is negative, you're speculating, not investing, and speculation is merely another form of gambling. The third resource is yourself, your capabilities, and earning strength. This is the singular resource everyone possesses, and it's criminally underutilized. A founding father understood this. He stated, "An investment in knowledge yields the optimal interest." Here's why this matters in a conversation about currency. If you maintain $50,000 deposited in a banking institution and you're beginning your career, you could be making a catastrophic error. That capital could finance education, training, or launching an enterprise that multiplies your earning strength tenfold. I've observed individuals conserve and accumulate, proud of their currency reserve, while their capabilities become outdated. They're so concentrated on protecting what they possess that they disregard the opportunity to become more valuable. That's reverse thinking, Your earning strength is the present value of all your future revenue. If you can increase that by 20% through superior capabilities, you've created substantially more value than you could by investing that capital in any resource, and unlike equities, your capabilities can't be eliminated by market collapses. But, and this is significant, investing in yourself only functions if you're truthful about what capabilities genuinely matter. Learning irrelevant skills doesn't count. Learn capabilities that create value for others, that are difficult to duplicate, that match genuine market demand. I devoted my existence learning across numerous disciplines: law, mathematics, psychology, physics, enterprise. Not because I desired to impress anyone, but because resolving complex problems requires instruments from different collections. You can't construct a structure with just a hammer. The fourth resource, and this surprises individuals, is superior quality obligations in particular situations. Notice I specified superior quality in particular situations, not arbitrary obligations, and certainly not most obligations in today's climate. Here's the thinking framework. An obligation is a commitment to pay you currency in the future. The question is, what will that currency be worth when you receive it? If you acquire a 30-year obligation yielding 4% and inflation operates at 3%, you're barely ahead and you've secured your capital for 3 decades. But short-term obligations from credit-worthy entities can serve a function. They're not there to make you wealthy. They're there to provide you optionality, keeping your resources available for when genuine opportunities emerge, while still earning something superior to currency. My partner discusses maintaining currency and equivalence at our enterprise, but notice he never maintains substantial amounts, usually just sufficient to meet obligations and capture opportunities. The obligations are a temporary storage location, not a destination. The error individuals make is treating obligations as security when they're genuinely just slightly less currency-like currency. In a high inflation climate, obligations can be equally hazardous as currency. Sometimes more so because they secure you in. Here's the principle. If an obligation's yield doesn't substantially exceed expected inflation, you're volunteering to lose buying strength in gradual motion. At minimum with currency, you maintain liquidity. Poor obligations provide you all the disadvantages of currency with none of the flexibility. The fifth resource is functional tangible resources, items that retain value because they're valuable to humans, not merely because we consent they are. This is distinct from speculation in precious metals or digital currency, which I'll address momentarily. I'm discussing resources like productive land, machinery that creates revenue, even a dependable vehicle if it enables you to earn capital. These are items that do something, that serve a function, that would still matter even if the financial system experienced a crisis. Currently, let me be transparent about precious metals. Numerous individuals think precious metals are the solution to inflation. But precious metals just exist there. They don't produce anything. They don't generate earnings. You acquire them hoping someone will pay you more for them later. That's not investing. That's speculation with an ancient history. My partner jokes that we could take all the precious metals ever extracted, form it into a cube, and it wouldn't produce anything except the requirement for more security personnel. Meanwhile, with the identical amount of capital, you could acquire enterprises that create billions in earnings every year. Which sounds more intelligent to you? Tangible resources only make sense if they're productive. A farm that cultivates crops, not farmland you're hoping to resell. tools that enable you to construct items, not collectibles you pray will appreciate, function over hope. The common thread in all 5 resources is this: they do something. Enterprises produce goods and services. Property houses individuals. Capabilities enable you to create value. Even obligations, when selected wisely, provide optionality. They're active, not passive. Currency is passive. It just exists there, gradually deteriorating in real terms, waiting for you to do something with it. The question isn't whether currency has a role. Obviously it does for near-term requirements and opportunistic flexibility. The question is whether it deserves to be your primary strategy. Currently, let's discuss why intelligent individuals keep making this error. Because comprehending the psychology is critical. It's not foolishness. Some very intelligent individuals are catastrophic with capital. It's predictable patterns of human misjudgment. Initially, there's what I label the social validation tendency. Everyone you know maintains capital in the banking institution. Your parents did it. Your friends do it. It seems like the responsible adult action to do, so you do it too, without examining whether it genuinely makes sense. But merely because everyone does something doesn't make it correct. In historical Germany, individuals who kept their savings in currency were eliminated. The socially normal action was also the financially catastrophic action. Social validation is a catastrophic method to make financial decisions. Second, there's availability bias tendency. The pain of losing capital in a market collapse is vivid and memorable. It's on the news. Individuals discuss it. The stories remain in your mind. The quiet erosion of inflation is invisible and abstract. So you fear the incorrect thing. You can observe an equity decline 20% in a year. You can't easily observe your buying strength decline 3% per year for a decade. The second loss is genuinely worse. It's 30% and permanent. But the initial feels worse because it's vivid. That's your brain deceiving you. Third, there's what I label loss aversion amplification, which I mentioned earlier. We despise relinquishing what we possess so intensely that we'll do irrational actions to avoid the sensation of loss, even if it means accepting certain loss to avoid uncertain loss. The solution isn't to disregard these tendencies. You cannot. You're human. You'll always experience them. The solution is to recognize they exist, name them when you observe them, and construct systems that protect you from your own psychology. Here's my system and you can adapt it. I decided long ago what percentage of resources should be in different categories based on rational analysis, not emotion. Then I adhere to it. I rebalance when required. I don't verify prices daily. I don't let fear or greed modify the plan. This isn't complicated guidance, it's boring, genuinely. But boring and rational defeats exciting and emotional over any meaningful time horizon. The tortoise defeats the rabbit not because he's faster, but because he doesn't sprint in random directions. Let me provide you a framework for thinking about your own situation, because I cannot tell you exactly what to do. I don't know your circumstances, your knowledge, your temperament, but I can provide you the questions to question. Initial question: what is my knowledge boundary? What do I genuinely comprehend? If you comprehend enterprises, perhaps you retain mostly equities. If you comprehend property, perhaps that's your concentration. If you don't comprehend either, perhaps you concentrate on low-cost index funds and developing your capabilities. Second question: what is my genuine danger? Not the fluctuation I observe on a screen, but the chance I won't have sufficient buying strength to live the existence I desire. For most individuals, the genuine danger is inflation destroying their savings, not a temporary market decline. Third question, what is my time horizon? If you require the capital in 6 months, acceptable. Keep it in currency. You have no alternative. But if you don't require it for 10 years, why would you select a resource guaranteed to lose value over that period? Fourth question, what are the secondary consequences? This is where most individuals cease thinking too early. They think currency is secure and cease there. But the secondary consequence is secure currency leads to poor retirement, reduced options, working longer than you desire. Fifth question, what does inversion tell me? If I retain mostly currency for the next 20 years, what's the likely outcome? Can I accept that outcome? If not, what modifications should I make today? These aren't rhetorical questions. Actually document your responses. You'll be shocked how much clarity you obtain from just thinking on paper. Most individuals never do this. They just react emotionally and hope for the optimal. Currently, here's something that makes individuals uncomfortable, but it requires to be stated. The reason most individuals stay poor isn't lack of opportunity, it's lack of rationality. They make emotional decisions, follow crowds, avoid the mathematics, and question why their financial existence doesn't improve. You cannot think yourself wealthy through positive thinking or affirmations or any of that nonsense. But you can think yourself not poor by avoiding foolish errors, by comprehending the power of exponential growth, by not volunteering to lose buying strength. My partner and I aren't wealthy because we're geniuses. We're wealthy because we're rational, patient, and we don't do foolish actions. We don't panic liquidate. We don't chase hot trends. We don't confuse activity with accomplishment. We just attempt to not be idiots consistently over many decades. The power of this approach is that it's accessible to anyone. You don't require a high intelligence quotient. You don't require insider information. You don't require luck. You just require to be rational, truthful with yourself, and patient. That's it. Those 3 attributes defeat brilliance nearly every time. Here's a concrete example from our own experience. In the late 1990s, everyone was making capital in technology equities. The internet bubble was in full swing. Individuals called us dinosaurs for not participating. They laughed at us for retaining boring enterprises like confectionery companies and insurance companies. Then the bubble popped. Individuals lost fortunes. But we didn't because we weren't playing that game. We adhered to what we comprehended, acquired at sensible prices, and let everyone else chase the excitement. Being rational and patient looked foolish right until it looked brilliant. The identical pattern has repeated countless times. Individuals get excited, chase returns, panic when things turn, and lose capital. Meanwhile, the rational approach, acquiring productive resources at sensible prices and retaining them, just functions. It's not exciting, but it functions. Currently, let me address the elephant in the room. What about emergencies? Don't you require currency for emergencies? Obviously you do. I'm not suggesting you place every dollar into equities and pray nothing goes incorrect. That would be foolish. The principle of thumb is simple. Keep 3 to 6 months of expenses in currency or near currency equivalents. That's your emergency fund. That's your sleep well at night capital. That's the vehicle broke down and the roof is leaking capital. Keep it liquid. Keep it secure. Don't invest it. But, and this is critical, 3 to 6 months of expenses isn't 3 to 6 years of income. If you make $100,000 a year and spend $60,000, your emergency fund should be $15,000 to $30,000, not $300,000. Mathematics matters. I observe individuals with $200,000 deposited in a savings account for emergencies when they spend $40,000 a year. That's not emergency planning. That's financial malpractice. You've obtained 5 years of expenses deposited idle, losing 3% buying strength annually when you only require 6 months. The remainder of that capital should be working for you in productive resources, in enterprises that expand, in capabilities that increase your earning strength, in anything that maintains and expands real buying strength. That's not hazardous. That's responsible. Here's another uncomfortable reality. The financial industry often provides you catastrophic guidance because their incentives don't align with yours. They make capital from activity, from fees, from you being frightened and requiring their assistance. They don't make capital from you being rational and patient. So, they sell you complicated products. They tell you that you require a consultant to navigate complex markets. They imply that doing nothing, just retaining exceptional enterprises for decades, is somehow irresponsible. It's nonsense, but profitable nonsense for them. The incentive to provide poor guidance is enormous. If a consultant tells you to acquire an index fund and retain it for 30 years, you don't require them anymore. But if they tell you the market is complicated and hazardous and you require active management, well, currently you're paying fees every year forever. I'm not stating all financial consultants are poor, some are excellent, but you require to comprehend what incentives are at play. Are they paid by the hour for guidance, or do they earn commissions on what they sell you? That distinction matters enormously. The optimal financial guidance I can provide you is free. Spend less than you earn. Invest the distinction in productive resources you comprehend. Be patient. Don't do foolish actions. That's it. Everything else is details and optimization around those core principles. But individuals don't desire to hear that. They desire a secret. They desire the singular weird trick. They desire to believe there's a complex strategy that will make them wealthy without discipline or patience. There isn't. I'm sorry, but there just isn't. The secret that's not genuinely secret is that time and rationality defeat cleverness and activity. The individual who acquires exceptional enterprises at fair prices and retains them for 40 years will defeat the individual who trades constantly, chases trends, and pays fees to active managers. History proves this repeatedly. Let me provide you one more thinking framework that ties this all together. Opportunity expense. Every dollar you keep in currency earning 0.5% is a dollar not earning 7% or 10% in productive resources. That distinction exponentially increases over time into massive amounts of foregone wealth. If you keep $100,000 in currency for 30 years at 0.5%, you'll have approximately $116,000 in nominal terms. But adjusted for 3% inflation, that's worth only approximately $48,000 in today's buying strength. You've lost more than half your real wealth by playing it secure. If you'd invested that identical $100,000 in a simple broad market index fund averaging 10% returns, you'd have approximately $1.7 million in 30 years. Even after adjusting for inflation, that's approximately $700,000 in today's buying strength. The distinction between currency and investing is the distinction between poverty and comfort in retirement. I'm not making this up. This isn't speculation. This is what the historical data demonstrates over and over again. The mathematics is undeniable. And yet, individuals still make the identical error because it seems secure in the moment. This is what I mean by avoiding foolishness. You don't require to be a genius to observe that losing 50% of your buying strength is worse than risking temporary fluctuation. You just require to genuinely look at the numbers instead of making decisions based on sensations. Currently, I know some of you are thinking, but what if I invest right before a collapse? What if I acquire equities and they decline 40% next year? That's a legitimate concern. Let me address it directly. Initially, if you invest a lump sum and the market collapses immediately, yes, that's painful. But here's what history demonstrates. If you retain for 10 years, the market has never failed to recover and reach fresh highs. If you retain for 20 years, you've always made capital. Always. Not sometimes, always. Second, you don't have to invest everything at once. Dollar cost averaging, investing a set amount regularly over time, eliminates the timing problem. Sometimes you acquire high, sometimes you acquire low, and it averages out. Simple, effective, removes the emotional decision making. Third, the market could collapse after you invest. Certainly, but it could also go up 30% right after you invest and then collapse, leaving you still ahead of where you started. You can't predict timing, nobody can. So, make a rational decision and execute it. The alternative, waiting for the correct time to invest, is selecting guaranteed loss to avoid potential loss. You're losing 3% per year to inflation while waiting for a collapse that could not come, not be as poor as you fear, or could recover faster than you expect. Here's a principle I've lived by. When you can't predict outcomes, concentrate on the process. You can't control whether the market goes up or down next year, but you can control whether you're acting rationally, whether you're diversified, whether you're in your knowledge boundary. Good process consistently applied over time leads to good outcomes. Poor process occasionally gets lucky, but usually leads to disaster. The intoxicated driver sometimes makes it home safely. That doesn't make intoxicated driving a good strategy. Let me close with this. The title of this discussion was about resources superior to currency, but the deeper lesson is about rationality versus emotion, about secondary thinking versus primary reactions, about long-term planning versus short-term comfort. Currency is necessary. It serves a function, but treating it as your primary resource, your secure harbor, your financial foundation. That's an error born from natural human psychology running headfirst into mathematical reality, and mathematics always wins eventually. The 5 resources I've discussed, productive enterprises, property, your own capabilities, strategic obligations, and functional tangible resources, aren't magic. They're just rational responses to a world where inflation exists and productivity exponentially increases. They're selecting reality over comfort. Your job isn't to memorize what I've stated and blindly implement it. Your job is to think, to comprehend the principles, to apply them to your own situation, to recognize your knowledge boundary, to be truthful about your own psychology, and construct systems that protect you from it. If you take nothing else from this, take this. Invert the question. Don't question, how can I get wealthy? Question, how can I avoid staying poor? The response to the second question is transparent. Don't volunteer to lose buying strength. Don't confuse nominal numbers for real value. Don't let fear make you poorer. I'm 99 years old as I'm recording this, and I've devoted most of that time observing individuals make predictable errors with their capital, the identical errors over and over across generations. Not because individuals are foolish, but because they're human. The antidote to human nature isn't superhuman willpower or extraordinary intelligence. It's awareness, systems, and patience. Recognize your biases. Construct guardrails. Think long-term. That's not exciting guidance, but it's guidance that functions. My partner and I constructed our enterprise from a failing textile operation into one of the most valuable companies in the world. We didn't do it by being clever. We did it by being rational, patient, and consistent. We avoided foolish errors. We let exponential growth do its work. That's it. You can do the identical action on a smaller scale. You won't construct a company worth hundreds of billions, but you can construct a comfortable retirement. You can avoid poverty. You can make rational decisions that serve your future self. That's within reach for anyone willing to think clearly. The world rewards rationality in the long run, even though it often rewards irrationality in the short run. Be patient, be disciplined, be truthful with yourself. And for heaven's sake, don't keep all your capital in currency and question why you're not getting ahead. Currently, go think about your own situation. Document your responses to those 5 questions I provided you. Look at the actual numbers, what you earn, what you spend, what you have in currency, what you have invested. Get brutally truthful with yourself. Then make a plan based on rationality, not emotion, based on mathematics, not sensations, based on long-term outcomes, not short-term comfort, and adhere to it. Don't let fear modify the plan. Don't let greed modify the plan. Just execute consistently. That's how you win. Not by being brilliant, but by being consistently not foolish. Not by timing the market, but by providing time to the market. Not by finding the secret, but by applying the obvious truths that everyone knows, but few individuals follow. The choice is yours. You can keep your capital in currency, observing it gradually lose value, sensing secure while getting poorer. Or you can invest rationally in productive resources, experience fluctuation, and construct real wealth over time. One seems secure, one is secure. They're not the identical action. I know which I'd select. I know which I have selected every day for 8 decades. And I'm telling you, the mathematics doesn't deceive. The psychology is predictable. The solution is straightforward. Currently, it's your turn to decide whether you'll act on it.